Hi there and welcome to this watercolor tutorial, and I'm going to paint a fox. A lovely fox. I found this lovely image and I want to do my own impression of this little friend of ours, and he is sitting with his head in the air, with his nose in the air. He is sitting in the grass and he is just enjoying spring or something, so I'm imagining. And his eyes are closed and his nose is tipped up in the air. And as you can see, the fox has quite big ears, and in this case the left ear is a little bit lower than the right ear because its head is tilted a little bit to the left. So I'm simply using a graphite pencil. It's a mechanical graphite pencil to do a sketch before I hit my paper with the watercolor. And in that way I can decide where to place the sky and the fox, and I think that's an ideal way of getting started. Plus, if you made a little mistake or something, you can still erase it. You can erase your lines that you are not happy with. And so this is also ideal for beginner artists that want to start on their watercoloring. Just make a quick sketch impression of the object you want to paint, and that will help you to get along. Now, the reference picture was a little bit, especially in the bottom, I thought that was a little bit boring. So I'm going to make some fantasy flowers way down below. White daisies or something. They're just by imagination. Oh, by the way, if you want to draw along with me in real time, you can find me on my Patreon page. You can watch this tutorial in real time and paint along with me for only $4.50. You get access to hundreds of videos. So check that out if you enjoy this. I'm going to place the nose entrances a little bit higher. So here you can see that it's ideal to start with the graphite pencil. You can always correct things. So now his nose is tilted up a little bit better. And once I'm happy with the sketch that I've drawn, I'm simply going to ease down my drawing a little bit, so that when I start with the water paint, that the pigments of the graphite do not go into the watercolor, because that has to be really, really bright. Now, if you have a kneaded eraser, you can just roll that up and then pick up most of the graphite pigments, so your watercolor will stay bright and colorful. And now that I've done that, I can start with placing in the area of the sky. And in the reference picture it's brownish, but I want to put in blue because of the contrast with the red of the fox. And those are complementary colors, so that's why I'm choosing to paint this in a bright blue. And I want to create a little bit of a bouquet effect in the background sky. And it's always nice to see how the little pigments of the watercolor react and where they will land on the paper. And the top of the sky I want to make a little bit darker, and as it drops down to the horizon, the blue will brighten up a little bit. And I also want to put in the shadow in between the daisies that are below. And it's a bright and sunny day, so I need a lot of contrast in between the flowers that I have created. And once the sun hits the white flowers, of course, in between the white petals of the flowers, the shadows will be very, very dark indeed. So I'm laying an under layer of shadow colors, and I'm simply using the Payne's gray for this. I also paint out the hearts of the flowers. I'm using the tip of my brush, and I'm using the Da Vinci brush for this. It's very nice, a very nice pencil. It's the number 5. And when you pick up a little bit of water, you can always go back into the sky and create a little bit of clouds and stuff by using just clean water. And then I will hit those pigments with a paper towel to make that nice well, sky or clouds or a little bit of a bouquet effect. So the background then looks quite playful. And now that the sky is drying, I can start painting in the center of the fox. I stay away from the sky that's behind the fox, otherwise the pigments will travel into the sky. You don't want that. And I'm pointing out the nose entrances and the shut eyes. And I also place in the dark shadows for the inside of the ears. And all the shadow parts, for all the shadow parts, I am using the Payne's gray. Now the breast of the fox, the hairs are white, but there's a lot of shadow in those hairs. So I'm simply looking for the shadowy parts that are inside the fox, and just putting an underlayer of Payne's gray. And once that is dried up, I can add the actual color of the fox, which is a little bit of brown and a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of red. Foxes are quite red. But I first start out with a little bit of brown, just to see what that brings me. The sky has dried up now, so this is when I can move to the contour lines of the fox. And I really wait for the background to dry. Otherwise, as I said, the pigments will start traveling into the sky. And I really don't want that. And I'm simply looking for the shadows also underneath the chin. Putting a little bit of brown in the nose. The nose is tilted up. There's a lot of shadow underneath the upper lip, of course. And I simply use layer over layer over layer. And once I'm happy with where the brown is, I can just add a little bit of red. I want to exaggerate the red a little bit. So, well, it's just a fantasy fox, but he is, well, it's fantasy, but it's also quite realistic, but I want to keep it as playful as possible. And I also want to keep track of where my light source is. So the light is coming from the top right. So the left side of the fox is a little bit more dark than the right side. And I also put in some grass in between the fox and the flowers, so that it actually looks like he's really sitting in a vast field of daisies. And the hearts of the flowers, I will simply just use a little bit of yellow and orange to make them pop out. And that is also the color of the fox, so they work together just brilliantly. Now here I add a little bit of extra contrast so that there's also shadow inside the grasses that are sticking out of the flowery field. And it makes the fox appear to be sitting inside the flowers. And for the shadows on the white petals, I use a little bit of purple. So, of course, also the white petals catch a little bit of shadow here and there. So I also keep track of those. Add a little bit of purple in the nose and underneath the upper lip, like this. And purple is an excellent shadow color, just as Pines Gray. And I can also use it as a layer over the red, so that the left side of the fox is more in the shadow than the right side of the fox. Now, watercolor always dries up a little bit lighter than it is when it's still wet. So I'm going to put an extra layer of dark blue on the top of my painting. And in that way also the clouds will pop out a little bit more. And then I can paint in the whiskers, which are on the side of his snout, of course. And the little entrances of the whiskers, little points there. And a little bit of shadow in between the hairs on the breast. Just tip those in. And this is my white gouache paint. I use it straight from the tube. And you can use the white gouache to put in extra little white detail. I love the way that the white gouache works together with my watercolor pigments. And I think it always gives, especially animals, a very soft touch. You can paint in little hairs, and the little hairs on top of the ears, and it gives animals that fluffy feel. So I simply use the tip of my brush and then tip in some of the little hairs. Well, it makes it soft, and it makes me want to hug this little fox here sitting in the field. And well, I always feel free just to add a little bit of the white gouache and combine it with the watercolor. And to add the sun, I simply use a thin layer of yellow, and then the sun is in my painting. So this is it, and I hope you will give this fox a try, and maybe I can invite you to my Patreon page to paint along with me. So maybe I will see you there, or in another one of my tutorials here on the YouTube. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon.